On this edition of the Dear Listeners Newsroom, we'll be looking back at CES 2022 highlights, including PSVR 2 details and new GPUs from both AMD and Nvidia. Also, the ESA still doesn't know what to do with E3. All this and more on the very first edition of the Dear Listeners Newsroom. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Dear Listeners Newsroom. My name is Micah Hendrick, and thank you for joining me on this weekly news show that we're starting here on TRG's YouTube channel. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and get right into the news. On Tuesday, Sony helped kick off CES with major details about their upcoming VR headset. The name for the unit, to nobody's surprise, will be PlayStation VR 2. The name of the VR controller will be the PlayStation VR 2 Sense controller. While no price or release window were given, the company did run down all the major features and specs, which include 4K HDR displays at 2000 by 2040 resolution per eye at 90 or 120 Hz, foveated rendering, integrated cameras within the headset for inside-out controller tracking, new sensory features including DualSense-like headset feedback, and eye tracking. The PlayStation blog has the full details, including a rundown of all the specs, which you can see right here. Sony also took the opportunity to announce their long-rumored Horizon VR title. Co-developed by Guerrilla Games and the recently acquired Firesprite, Horizon Call of the Mountain gave us a very short glimpse at what we can expect from Sony when the VR unit launches. They did confirm that the player won't play as Aloy, but will interact with her and other familiar characters from the Horizon universe. While not a full-blown PSVR 2 kind of blowout, it was nice to get a tease from Sony about what the future of VR holds for them. Earlier in the day, AMD and Nvidia each took their turn revealing their new line of products, including brand new entry-level GPUs. AMD's stab at the budget card is the RX 6500 XT, which releases on January 19th for $199. The RX 6500 XT features RDNA 2 architecture and is aimed at running 1080p games at the highest setting. Not to be outdone, Nvidia showed off the new RTX 3050, which features 8 gigs of GDDR6 memory as well as DLSS and hardware accelerated ray tracing support. Nvidia's budget offering will cost you $269 and releases on January 27th. Other cards were announced at CES, including Nvidia's high-end RTX 3090 Ti, but info was scarce as the company says they'll share more info next month. It appears that the ESA and its annual E3 event are continuing to struggle in a post-pandemic world. Yesterday, website VentureBeat reported that for the third year in a row, the ESA would be canceling its planned in-person event for 2022. Quote, due to the ongoing health risks surrounding COVID-19 and its potential impact on the safety of exhibitors and attendees, E3 will not be held in person in 2022. We remain incredibly excited about the future of E3 and look forward to announcing more details soon. When pressed for clarification around doing an online event, the ESA simply responded that they are, quote, excited about the possibilities of an online event, end quote. That doesn't exactly instill confidence in fans who have come to love E3-like shows. You might recall that the ESA was struggling with an identity for E3 even in 2019 before COVID-19 tossed them a life preserver, giving them basically an out for 2020 entirely. With events such as Jeff Keighley's Summer Games Fest only gaining momentum, it'll be interesting to see how E3 fares in 2022 and beyond. Moving on, Jason Schreier is reporting over at Bloomberg on a game that many fans have had their eye on for a long time, and that's BioShock creator Ken Levine's next game. In the lengthy article, Schreier illustrates how Levine, who many consider to be one of the industry's great auteurs, has a considerably taxing management style at his studio, Ghost Story Games. According to current and former employees, Levine is a flawed manager who often struggles to communicate his visions and alienates or browbeats subordinates who challenge him or fail to meet his expectations. Levine, notorious for his ability to scrap huge chunks of work, reportedly often tosses out weeks or months' worth of work if an idea isn't working or he simply changes his mind. Despite Levine's inability to deliver a game, publisher Take-Two keeps extending the leash in hopes for a huge payoff. Now, we're all huge fans of Levine's games here at the Reformed Gamers, so here's hoping that they get it sorted out over at Ghost Story Games. Next up, we've got some interesting details on an upcoming Avalanche Studios game. You'd be forgiven if you didn't recognize the name Paul Roshinsky, but you should recall the studio which he was formerly the head over, and that's Sony's now defunct Evolution Studios, who pumped out the MotorStorm series and Drive Club. On New Year's Day, Roshinsky took to Twitter with a hopeful outlook for his new Avalanche Liverpool office, stating that they would be able to announce their new game in 2022. While it's not news that Roshinsky works for Avalanche, it was widely believed that his Liverpool-based studio was assisting on the upcoming Contraband, which Avalanche announced in partnership with Microsoft this past E3. However, not only did Roshinsky shoot these rumors down, he also added that the team was not working on a racing game, but something, quote, very different from his previous work at Evolution. So it seems that Avalanche has a lot in the oven, so we'll just have to wait and see if they announce anything about Contraband or this new Avalanche game in 2022. Next up, we've got a pair of rumored / leaked games. I guess first up, achievement tracking website True Achievements has discovered the existence of an achievement list for none other than Goldeneye 64. The site notes that they don't know if this will be a remaster, remake, or just a port of the N64 version, but they do show off all 55 achievements, which you can go check out over at the site. These sorts of leaks are almost always indicative of an imminent release, so we'll be keeping an eye out for this one for sure. The next rumored game is simply another confirmation from something that Jason Schreier reported on back in April of 2021, and that's the Last of Us 1 remake. Sony has yet to acknowledge that this game exists, but trusted industry insider Tom Henderson pours more fuel on the fire. On Wednesday, Tom posted on Twitter that he had, quote, heard from multiple people now that The Last of Us remake is nearly finished and could release during the latter half of 2022. This report aligns nicely with Schreier's April report, which claimed that development on the game began with PlayStation's internal Visual Arts Service Group, but has since landed back at Naughty Dog. Tom goes on to clarify that he believes that The Last of Us 2 Director's Cut is also coming sooner rather than later, and indicates that Sony might include the new Factions multiplayer into the Director's Cut package. Of course, it's wise to take all these rumors with a grain of salt, but with both Tom Henderson and Jason Schreier reporting essentially the same thing, it's a solid bet that we're going to see this one come to fruition. And finally today, speaking of Jason Schreier's April report, in that same article, he had reported on how Sony had rejected a Days Gone 2 pitch from Ben's studio, which sort of sent shockwaves through the studio, culminating in a couple of high-profile employees leaving the company. One of those employees, Days Gone game director Jeff Ross, couldn't contain himself when Sony proudly announced on the CES stage that Ghost of Tsushima had sold over 8 million copies. Ross said on Twitter, quote, "At the time I left Sony, Days Gone had been out for a year and a half and a month and sold over 8 million copies. It's since gone on to sell more than 1 million plus on Steam. Local studio management always made us feel like it was a big disappointment." Ghost of Tsushima has also been out for roughly a year and a half as of this announcement, so it is a little head-scratching considering anything over 8 million sold for a new franchise is really incredible. This only lends further credence to Schreier's original report, which spoke of much tumult at Sony Bend. The Oregon-based studio has since announced that they're working on a brand new franchise, but we're likely years away from seeing the fruits of that effort. Alright guys, that's it for the very first edition of the Dear Listeners Newsroom. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey. If you like what you saw today, hit that like button below, subscribe to the TRG YouTube channel, and ladies and gentlemen, that's the news. We'll see you next week.